Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome, future educators, to today's Explainer. We are tackling a truly foundational piece of your teaching toolkit for the Texas 905 exam, Mastering Competency 001G, which is all about art techniques and media. You know, as an instructional coach, I am absolutely thrilled to walk you through this. Because getting this right, it isn't just about passing a test. It's really about learning how to unlock your future students' creative potential. Before we even get into the academic language and the standards, let's just pause. I want you to close your eyes for a second. Picture your future classroom. It's, say, Tuesday afternoon. You hear the crinkle of paper, the soft clinking of water cups, that low hum of focused, engaged students. There's that slight, familiar smell of tempera paint in the air. Right? As you walk around the room, you aren't just seeing kids making a mess. You're seeing them make deliberate, thoughtful choices. So how did they get there? Well, that brings us to the core question guiding this whole explainer. What will this actually look like when you are teaching your own students? How do you create an environment where art isn't just a placeholder activity to keep them busy, but a meaningful process of exploration?
Let's look at exactly what the state expects from you. Here is the official descriptor for Competency 001G. It states that a teacher, quote, selects appropriate techniques to create art in various media and promotes students' ability to use those techniques in creating original artworks. And what's really interesting about this standard is the heavy emphasis on your role as the facilitator. As a beginning teacher, you really have to understand that artists use so many different media and techniques to express ideas. Your job, your primary job here, is to provide your students with the opportunities to explore these different artistic processes. Like we said, you aren't just handing out crayons to keep them quiet. You are actively, deliberately guiding them to express their unique ideas through specific artistic choices.
But obviously, you can't just throw open the art supply closet and say, go for it, right? Breaking down this standard into daily classroom practice means looking really closely at your responsibilities when selecting materials. First and foremost, the media you choose has to be developmentally appropriate. I mean, a kindergarten class is going to struggle with intricate, sharp carving tools, but they will absolutely thrive with thick, easy-to-grip oil pastels. Second, it literally has to be safe for classroom use. Always check labels, understand student allergies, and make sure the physical environment supports the activity safely. And third, your media selection must be aligned with your instructional goals. If your goal for the day is to teach color mixing, handing them a box of pre-colored construction paper, that won't get them there. Liquid paints or blendable pastels absolutely will. Every single choice you make in the classroom needs a clear educational why.
So the crucial point here, and this is a big one, is understanding the difference between two terms that teacher candidates constantly mix up on the certification exam: media and technique. Media, or art media, refers to the actual physical materials artists use to create artwork, the tangible stuff, the clay, the paint, the paper. Technique, on the other hand, is the specific method or process used to create that art. It's exactly how you use the stuff. A good trick is to think of media as the noun and technique as the verb. For example, you can use watercolor paint, that's the media, but your technique might be a wet-on-wet wash or maybe dry brushing. Knowing this distinction is absolutely vital for passing the exam and, honestly, for communicating effectively with your future students.
Now let's move along and build up your academic vocabulary so you can easily spot these on your exam. Think about the totally distinct tactile experiences you can offer your kids. You have drawing, which is creating images primarily with lines and marks, versus painting, where you apply pigment with tools like brushes or sponges. Then there's printmaking, transferring ink from one surface to another, like a stamp. That is totally different from construction, where students physically assemble three-dimensional parts together. Add, of course, ceramics, working with earth and clay materials that are typically fired in a kiln. Notice how unique each of these materials is? They each offer a completely different pathway for your students to express themselves.
Continuing with those tactile experiences, we also have fiber art. Think weaving on a loom, or simple sewing projects using fabric, yarn, or thread. Then there's electronic media, which is an increasingly massive tool in our modern classrooms, utilizing drawing tablets, digital design tools, and other technology. Finally, mixed media intentionally combines multiple materials or techniques into a single cohesive piece. As your instructional coach, I just want to remind you, artists use all these different materials to express very distinct ideas. I mean, doing a digital drawing feels fundamentally different to a student than weaving yarn, right? Offering a diverse variety of these media is exactly how you reach different types of learners.
And this brilliantly illustrates how we connect theory to practice. Let's drop this right back into the reality of your future classroom. Imagine you are teaching a 4th grade class. You decide to introduce printmaking. Step 1. You have your students carve simple designs into foam printing plates. This choice is highly developmentally appropriate and safe. No sharp carving gouges are needed, just dull pencils pressing into soft foam. Step 2. Students transfer their ink designs onto paper. Right here, they are actively learning the technique of pulling a print, using the media of ink and foam. Step 3. You have them compare their results to other forms of artistic media they've used, like painting or drawing. Suddenly, they realize that printmaking allows for multiple identical images, completely unlike a singular painting. This structured, step-by-step connection between media, technique, and reflection, that is exactly the kind of scenario that Texas 905 will test you on.
Now, I want to pause for just a moment and invite you to put your teacher hat firmly on. Reflect on this question. How might these different media choices support diverse learners in your future classroom? Think about it. What would you do if a student really struggles with fine motor skills? Perhaps the tiny, precise grip required for drawing with a thin colored pencil is incredibly frustrating for them. But the gross motor movement of construction, assembling large cardboard pieces, allows them to shine and actually feel successful. Or maybe a student who is sensory avoidant and hesitant to get their hands messy with wet ceramics will absolutely thrive using electronic media on a tablet. Your instructional decisions around media selection can profoundly change a student's relationship with learning and their own self-confidence.
Okay, let's synthesize all of this so you are completely confident and ready for test day. Here are the 4 absolute must-know takeaways for the exam, pulled directly from the source material. 1. Students must experience a variety of artistic media. Please do not just stick to crayons all year long. 2. Different media require different techniques. You cannot use clay the way you use a watercolor brush, and you have to explicitly teach those specific techniques. 3. Media selection must support instructional goals. Always have a clear pedagogical reason for your classroom choices. And 4. Artistic techniques directly influence artistic outcomes. Memorize these 4 fundamental points. If you internalize these principles, you won't just ace the competency questions on the exam. You'll design incredibly effective, engaging lesson plans for your kids.
I really want to double down on that last point, actually, because understanding this is really the bridge between a good teacher and a great teacher. Artistic techniques influence the final artwork. What this actually means in practice is that effective teaching is about showing students not just how to handle materials without making a giant mess, but how their specific technique choices completely change their artistic results. If a student chooses to press really hard with a charcoal pencil versus shading lightly and smudging it with their thumb, the emotional feel and the visual impact of the artwork changes completely. When you teach technique, you are actually teaching students how to communicate. You are giving them a rich vocabulary that goes way beyond just words.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought from an instructional coach's perspective. Your media selection shapes their self-expression. What artistic world will you open up for your students first? You are stepping into a profound profession where the instructional choices you make on a random Tuesday can literally spark a lifelong passion in a child. By mastering Competency 001G, understanding the varied media, and thoughtfully applying these techniques, you aren't just checking a box to pass an exam. You are preparing to be the transformative teacher that students remember forever. Keep that visual of the vibrant, purposeful, and engaging classroom in your mind as you study. You are going to be a fantastic educator. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep up the great work, and I'll catch you in the next one.